In the spirit of respect, reciprocity, and truth, we honor and acknowledge Mohkinstsis and the traditional Treaty 7 territory and oral practices of Niitsitapi Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, as well as the Yara Nakota and Tsuut'ina nations. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3, within the Northwest Métis homeland. Finally, we acknowledge all nations, Indigenous and non, who live, work, and play on this land, and who honor and celebrate this territory. Hey everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Pridecast, brought to you by IKEA. I'm your host Sumit, and my pronouns are he and they. At Calgary Pride, I take care of everything programming and production for this year's festival and our year-round programming. This year has highlighted the importance of creating space and visibility for folks who live in our city and bringing connection at a time where our community needs the most. Join me every Friday where we will feature guests in our local community who will share their experiences as 2S LGBTQ folks in Calgary. We will also share upcoming community events and all the buzz that's going on in Calgary during Pride Week as well. Learning more about the history of Pride movement in Calgary can give us a better understanding of how far we've come and the world we live in today. Today, we're honored to have a very special guest on the Pridecast, someone who is a trailblazer, who is the last surviving founder of Calgary's first gay bar and a true pioneer in 2S LGBTQ community, Lois Szabo. Welcome, Lois. Congratulations on opening of Lois Szabo Commons Park. What did it mean to have a park named after you?
I haven't figured that out yet. When they first told me about it, I thought they were joking.
Yeah.
It just didn't occur to me that it would never happen. Not that there would be a park for the lesbian gay community, and so I just didn't tell anybody about it. I thought, yeah.
They didn't know until.
And then about 6 months later, about almost a year later, Jasmine contacted me and said they wanted a picture of and a bio of some sort. So, okay, we can do that. And then another months went by, and then my family did a 85th birthday drive past, and Jasmine came and she said, "It's still moving." And so anyway, when it became a reality, I just went into shock because so many of the politicians, the administration in the past had promised all sorts of support for the gay community.
Right.
But any time it came near election time, they ran. They just dropped it like a hot potato because their careers were at stake, and that was more important than us. So I just assumed that this would be the same thing. So now that it's happened, I have nothing but admiration and respect for the leadership of Mayor Nemji and Evan Woolley and the other aldermen, councillors that voted for it.
Well, the park looks beautiful.
And I'm so pleased, not necessarily because it's nice to have my name on it, but to me, if I had my choice, it'd be the Carousel Commons.
Oh, okay.
It would be, because to me, it's a public space for all of us.
Just like Carousel was.
Yes, and that's, to me, is what's important.
Well, either way, we have one.
Either way, we have one, and if my name's on it, so be it. Cool. I'm glad I did something that they felt they put my name on it, I guess.
Lois, embracing who you are at any age takes courage, support, and a deep belief that you matter, right? And you grew up at a time when homosexuality was a criminal offense. Can you describe what was the life like for you that time?
I've always been myself, and I believe everybody should be true to themselves once they know who they are. But of course, I didn't know who I was Well, I did. I got married at a young age, and I loved my husband very much. We were married for 65 years, and he was a wonderful man and loving and supporting. The only problem was he wasn't a woman. That was, but I didn't know that. I shouldn't say I didn't know that, but I didn't realize my attraction for women till we'd been married for 10 years and had 2 children. And so I told him, didn't feel bad about being gay, but I felt bad because I was going out, in the evening, and he'd say, "Where'd you go?" I'd say, "A movie," and then he'd say, "Well, what movie?" And so I felt bad about lying to him. So after 3 months, I just said, "Well, enough of that. This is the way it is." And his reaction was loving and supporting. He just said, "Well, you're a good mother and a good homemaker, and that's what we need." And so we negotiated. I hate that word, but we both agreed that the children and family came first.
Right.
So he said, "Well, we just get on with our lives, and children and family come first." It did for me, and it did for him. And when I told him, I said, "It's not that you're not a better father than I am a mother, vice versa. I'm not taking the kids away from you, and you're definitely not taking them away from me. So right. This is where it is." So that was it. We and the children were 7 and 9. So life just went on as usual, and they met my girlfriend, and she was very, very close with them. And Mother's Day, they always gave her a Mother's Day card, and she didn't live with me, but so to me it was just natural, and I felt that when the children were old enough to ask, then I would tell them. I'd never lie to anybody. If they asked me, I'd tell them. But so very few had the courage to ask me. And my daughter was the first one that asked me when she was about 16, and her father was away. He was in the military, and he was away with United Nations troop peacekeepers. And so she asked what the connection was between Betty and I told her. She said her only question was, "Does Dad know?" And I said, "Yes, your dad knows. He's always known." That was it.
Beautiful.
My son never did ask. He just accepted. And Betty was part of our family. It was so natural.
It was so natural.
So natural.
Yeah.
Which I hoped would turn out. And I always hoped that nothing serious would happen to Betty, to my husband, or where I was always somewhat torn between where I wanted to be but I don't think I ever thought about the legalities of it. It was just who I was and who we were as a family.
To embrace yourself.
And so
that's amazing.
Ignorance is bliss,
Absolutely. Don't forget, we still have a variety of in-person events that will be taking place through our 2021 Pride season. And some of those are coming up are your run, walk, roll, and get those step in wherever you are by joining the Love is Love Mile. It's a virtual run anytime that you can do during Pride Week. Love is Love Mile is like all Run Calgary events. This is an inclusive event, open and welcome to everyone. Categories are based on your speed, not your gender. Run Calgary and Calgary Pride encourages you to show up and just be you. Your participants will receive a cool singlet and a finisher's medal. Sign up online at runcalgary.ca. So how did the idea of Club Carousel came about?
Well, in 1967, my girlfriend and I had been together for 3 years, and we'd spent a lot of that time looking to see where there were other gay women in Calgary, and unsuccessfully. And she was a heavy drinker, and her centennial project was to have a drink in every bar in Calgary. Mm-hmm. And so we started out in January. Every weekend we went to a different bar on Friday night and Saturday night. And by late September, we ended up at the Cecil Hotel. And that was where the women's softball team met after their games. And we walked in, and they used to have a back room because in those days the women drank in one room and men in another. So we went into this room, and it was full of lesbians, and he's like, good Lord, Mecca, we've arrived. But nobody spoke to us or acknowledged us. We went every weekend faithfully. After almost 3 months, some Terry Miller actually sent us over a beer, but I didn't know who had sent the beer. But so then on the way out, there were a couple women sitting at a table, and this one woman stuck her foot out and said, "Where the hell do you think you're going?" And I didn't notice that she stood up. I just sort of said, "Who the hell wants to know?" And I realized that she was like 6 feet tall. And I said, "Well, we're going home. Nobody talks to us here, we're going home." And she said, "Sit down." So we sat down, and then that was Elton's share. And they introduced themselves. And they took us to a little club off of 8th Avenue, about the 800 block, downstairs, back alley, typical situation. And it was a neat little place, and I met Jack Lowen there. He was the only guy there. In fact, my girlfriend thought he was a girl and thought he was terribly attractive. And so anyway, we got to know Jack because we kept going back there, of course. And I learned that there was another gay club down at 1207 First Street Southwest that mainly the guys went to, but it was supposed to be for gays. But the owner was selling tickets to straights to come down and look at the queers, because it was, economically viable for him to do that. And the guys were getting ticked off, so they decided to boycott the place. But they needed somebody to go that wasn't out in the community to go and check to see if the boycott was holding. So he asked if Betty and I would go down. So for the next 4 weeks, Betty and I went down to that club and would report back to the guys that how many guys, who was there, and well, not who was there, but how many. And after a month, that place went bankrupt. He was operating on a shoestring, and so he had to close down. So we were offered the chance to take over his lease and take over everything that was in there, including the filth. And
filth, you said?
The filth. Oh, yes. After many shovelfuls of dirt off the floor, we realized it was a tile floor. Oh, it was gross. Absolutely gross. And so we took over. Betty and I made the rounds of by then we'd found out there were other places where the women went to. So we sort of made the rounds and convinced 25 people to buy $10 memberships to a club we were going to have eventually. And so that was sort of our goal, our purpose at the time, aside from going down to help clean and decorate and paint and paint and paint. And so yeah, that's how it started and why it started.
The most interesting fact I've heard from you was regarding the name of the club was actually on a paint can.
Cleaning out all the crud. They ran across a can of Carousel brand paint, and that's how it got its name. Ken McBain was our decorator. He was he set designer and for Theatre Calgary.
Okay.
And he did window dressing for the Bay at Eaton. So he took over and when he saw the can of paint, Carousel, it became Carousel. And so we opened, and the police came down and told us to close they told us to close the first night, that we couldn't operate. But we did. We just ignored them and then opened the next night. And so they came down again that night, and they charged us with operating a dance hall without a license. And so they left. As they were leaving, one policeman sort of hung back at the bottom of the stairs, and he said, "You guys need a good lawyer. Contact Harvey Gitter."
Okay.
So the next morning, well, that was Saturday, so Monday morning, we went to see Harvey Gitter. And so he said, well, the way around this is to get a provincial charter under the Societies Act. So he applied for it. So there were 4 guys, and But Harvey said, well, you know, you really should have a woman's signature as well. And so I signed to give it balance, you know, somewhat balance. And the police charged us. They had Harvey kept stalling the court time, appearance time. And
On purpose?
On purpose, yes.
Interesting.
Because it took a while to get the charter through. And so the day that we actually had to go to court, Jack and Roger and I went, and Roger was on the stand and answered questions, and then Jack was on the stand, and you know, they said, well, men were dancing with men and women with women, and the judge said, that has nothing to do with the charges of operating a dance hall.
Right.
You know, so just forget about that.
Yeah.
And about that time, Harvey's assistant came in with our charter papers. They had been approved, and I never did go on the stand. The case was dismissed, and
That's awesome.
that was
The end of
how it came about.
Yeah. We know that the club Carousel led to forming of sister societies in the prairies. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced at that time?
We had visitors from all over, you know,
Alberta or Canada?
all over the world, actually.
That's awesome.
And we were listed in the Gay Guides, World National Gay Guides book. Long before Grindr and all computer stuff, they actually had books. And so we had lots of visitors, but, you know, a lot, guys would come down from Edmonton, and, well, not just guys, but mainly guys came down from Edmonton.
Right.
And word of mouth spread around, and so they would come to Calgary, and then they wanted to know how we were set up, and they applied for charters in their own provinces. There was one in Edmonton and Saskatoon and Regina and Winnipeg. And so we as a board, the five of us, would go down to visit different ones, and they would come to visit us and see how we were doing. And it just sort of spread by word of mouth that if you're in Calgary, go to Club Carousel.
Yeah.
That's where everybody is.
Yeah.
And the same when it went to Edmonton and so on. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
What do you see as the next chapter for Pride movement in Calgary? Is there a vision you have in mind, or what do you think it should or be like?
Being from the old school, I would like to see more communication between the young and the older generation.
I agree.
And I would like for the younger generation to not assume everything is wonderful, because it is, but they can't become complacent.
Yeah.
You've got to keep your guard up, because the politicians and the religions will just wipe you out, and you'll be right at square one.
Any words of wisdom for today's advocates, like myself or all the viewers who are watching?
Not specifics, just don't give up. Don't give in, and don't let the politicians snow you under.
Anything you wish that this community would have, or you want to see this community to do?
I would like to see it more cohesive.
Okay.
And somehow or other, where it seems so disjointed. I mean, I know there's lots of things happening,
Right.
but the left hand doesn't seem to be informed of the right. And now that's probably my fault, because I'm not terribly computer literate. And so I know there's lots of stuff out there, but I don't know how to get it. And we haven't all died. And I'm sure I'm not the only senior that has difficulty reaching out to what's actually happening.
Right.
I mean, I keep showing up, so, because I'm stubborn, and I won't go back in the closet.
There's a reason you came out.
But there are many that are just quietly disappearing, and I'd like to see that they at least have the information and a way to connect with younger people, if they want to.
So, Lois, we know the park's named after you, and we know that it's not the work of one person. There's obviously the whole team involved. Can you shed light on some of your other members who were part of your team?
I'm still alive, so I get all the recognition, but it does not belong to me alone.
Yeah.
This was not a one-person club or effort, and there were 4 men involved in the formation of Club Carousel. Roger Perkins, Ken McBain, Gordon Hilscher, and Jack Lowen. Roger and Gord and Ken withdrew after the court case because of their positions, and Jack and I continued on. And as a point of interest, gay bashing was a everyday occurrence in those days, and Gordon Hilscher was killed in a gay bashing incident. He was my treasurer, and another gentleman, Dan Chaboyer, he was also murdered in a gay bashing situation. And at least 8 guys that I saw weekly committed suicide during my time. So people need to know that. Maybe they don't need to know their names, but they do need to know that I witnessed that.
Yeah.
And my heart aches for those guys.
Yeah.
And Jack gave his blood, sweat, and tears to that club. I have his eulogy I wrote for him, and I wish I brought it with me because nobody enjoyed that club more than he did. It was not a one-man circus here or one-woman circus. It was a joint issue.
Lois, I can't thank you enough for joining and sharing your wisdom with us. I would like to thank you for your advocacy and the tireless amount of work that went into whatever we are and whatever position we are here today. I want to thank you on behalf of our 2S LGBTQ+ community, and one more giant thank you for joining us here from the whole Team Pride.
It's fun.
Calgary Pride. It is fun, absolutely.
And
I enjoyed.
The whole 50 some odd years have been fun.
Yeah.
And
here we are.
And here we are.
Thank you so much. And one more giant thank you to this week's feature Calgary Pride partners, TD, IKEA, Shaw Communications, Deloitte, Lawson Lundell LLP, Mount Royal University. Without them, we would not be able to make this program happen. And special thanks to IKEA for its resounding support of Calgary Pride this year. Don't forget to visit calgarypride.ca to find our latest details on 2021 Big Pride Festival. Join me for another episode of Pridecast next Friday.